What's down, people, and welcome back to another episode of Ghetto Gospel. So where we left, look here, bro. You getting out of hand with how long these videos is. Man, I'm trying to get the message out, and I can't be worried about how. Look, bro, 3 minutes. We set the videos for 3 minutes because people wasn't watching no longer than that. Bruh, I done been doing 3-minute videos and it ain't making no difference. Folks ain't watching them either. Maybe they would if you got back in line and stopped going over on your look here, fam. I respect your opinion, yeah, but I'm gonna make the videos I wanna make. Trying to change it up ain't made no difference on how many people is watching these videos. So if I'm gonna put the videos out, I might as well put out the kind of videos I wanna put out that's gonna reach the people that I want it to reach eventually. You know what, fam? Do you, and we'll see how it all play out. I'm done. So where we left off at. Last week, we talked about Jacob being all extra nice to his brother and hoping he wouldn't kill him like he said he would. We also talked about how Esau showed that man hospitality and he turned it down because, let's face it, Jacob knew he deserved for Esau to take revenge on him. The last thing we talked about was how Jacob told Esau that he'd meet up with him at the spot where he was staying at, but then he up and went somewhere else to set up shop. And now we caught up. So I'm gonna tell y'all up front, this episode probably ain't for kids. If you change the names and the dates, this wouldn't sound too far off from something you might see on the news or one of them cold case shows that a lot of y'all wives love watching. Don't say I ain't warned you. So the first thing it say is that Leah's daughter, Dinah, I told y'all we was gonna get back to talking about her, went to hang out with some of the local girls from the city where they was staying at. And while she was out there, this little dude named Shechem, who daddy ran the whole city, pulled up on her like, girl, give me that, and decided he was gonna snatch your girl up and give her the business, whether she wanted it or not. And I guess he was stuck on her after that, cause it say he was talking sweet to her, and he told his daddy Hamor to set it up so he could marry her. And so the next verse say that Jacob found out what the dude did to his daughter, but since his sons was working out in the field, he ain't say nothing until they came home. So while he was waiting, Hamor came to try and talk it out with Jacob. And when Dinah's brothers made it home and found out what happened, they was a combination of depressed and all the way pissed off because Shechem was dead wrong for what he did to their sister. And I'm gonna take a quick pause right here. Y'all caught that? Let me make it clearer. What that verse says specifically was that Shechem did something that ain't supposed to be done, which means that Jacob and his family wasn't just running around snatching up women and raping them, because by their own words, they knew that was something that you ain't had no business doing. So anyway, Hamor told Jacob and his sons that Shechem wanted Dinah bad and that they ought to let her be his wife. He went off on this tangent talking about how they ought to marry local girls and let their daughters marry local dudes. And he even told them they could set up shop in his city and buy land and all of that good stuff. And then Hamor made the worst mistake you could ever make when you're trying to negotiate. He put all of his cards on the table and told them that they could ask for whatever they want and he'd give it to them. You don't realize how true them words was, cause them boys wanted blood. So before we even see it play out, it tell you that they lied to Hamor when they answered him and Shechem because of what that boy did to his sister. Y'all caught that? Sound like Shechem was standing right there when the negotiation was going on, which sound to me like he was either full of that audacity, dumb as a box of rocks, or untouchable. Whichever one it is, it's about to get fixed here in a couple verses. So Dinah's brothers told him, we can't let our sister marry no uncircumcised dude. That's just embarrassing. I mean, unless you trying to get circumcised like we is. If you bout that, then we'll click up with y'all. But if y'all ain't, we gonna take our sister and leave. And homie Hamor and his son was all about it. And they ain't waste no time, cause Shechem was all about Dinah. Now let's just be clear about this. It don't never say he loved her. It just say he was delighted or pleased with her. Love is a totally different word from what they use here in this chapter. I know this ought to be obvious, but I'ma say it anyway. Love don't make you rape somebody and then ask for permission to marry him after the fact. So anyway, one thing this chapter makes sure to tell us is that Hamor was the leader of the city and Shechem was one of the most important dudes in his family. So when the next verse say they went and hollered at the men in the city, you know their words probably carried weight. And they was like, these dudes ain't about that drama. Let them stay in our city and move around. We got buku space. We could marry their daughters and give our daughters to them. But they said the only way they'll stick around and click up with us is if we all get circumcised like they is. And this the part that made me look at these cats sideways. All they his stuff gonna end up being ours anyway. All we gotta do is let him live around here. And apparently, that was all it took to convince them dudes to get circumcised. Now, I don't remember what it was like to get circumcised, but I remember what it was like for my son. And all I'm gonna say is this: either dudes was way harder back then, or they had a whole lot to gain from linking up with Jacob and his family. For me, it'll take a whole lot more than a little speech to get me to hack a chunk of my meat off. So on the third day after them boys got circumcised, Dinah's brothers, specifically her brothers from Leah, showed up with swords and knocked off every male in the city. And then they took their sister back. And I guess the rest of the brothers showed up to the city and took everything they had that was valuable because of what them folks did to their sister. I'm talking about they took all of these folks' animals, all their stuff, all their women, and everything else they could find in the houses too. Which, I'm gonna be real, sound a little overkill in my mind. It wasn't but one dude who raped their sister. Why they killed all of them? That sounds like a mob move to me. So when they got back to Jacob, he came at Simeon and Levi like, "Bam, what you done did? You done made the people in this land hate me." He was talking about the whole land, not just that little city. You know it ain't that many of us. What if they all click up and decide they want to attack us? Our whole family could get wiped out. And them boys came back at him like, "What? We supposed to just let him treat our sister like a hoe?" And that's where the chapter ends. It don't even tell us that Jacob ain't had no response for that. Now, one last thing before I wrap it up. If you look at the last chapter, it don't tell us that God told him to go to that city where he's staying at. When you read it, it actually tell you that he lied to his brother and told him he was gonna meet him in Seir, where he stayed at, but he really went to Shechem. Something bad always seems to be happening when folks live too close to the city. And this next piece is just my opinion, so you think Esau just magically forgot who his brother was and how he played him? I imagine that if I had a little brother who was so shiesty that there was times that I had wanted to kill him, I figure that somebody else probably wanted his head too, especially if I ain't seen him in a minute. And I figure that Esau was probably way more familiar with that part of the world than Jacob was. And that's probably why he was rolling with 400 G's on his team. I imagine that if Jacob wouldn't have been so busy running from his guilty conscience, he would have ended up in the city with his brother, who had 400 riders on his side, and none of this probably would have happened. But that's just my 2 cents. So that's it for this week. If you don't know Jesus, but you're trying to get to know him, go and click that first link in the description down there. I'll see y'all next week, and as always, peace, and I hope y'all people straight.